The days grow longer as spring approaches. And with them grow the hopes and aspirations of every driver, owner, crew member, and fan. For some team, hard work is about to pay off. The ultimate reward will soon become a reality. It's the Indianapolis 500-mile race, the greatest sporting event the world has ever known. And it's right around the corner. It's more than right around the corner. It is here. The road to Indy has arrived at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and we are live here on ESPN. Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Jenkins. Welcome to our final Road to Indy program. Another exciting month of May is here. So many issues to deal with, so many great stories to talk about as the month of May rolls around in 1994. But, of course, the road to Indy ends here. It certainly does not begin here. 3 races have been held so far in the 1994 season. Let's take a look at what happened in those events. The road to Indy began here on a rainy afternoon in Surfers Paradise, Australia. Nigel Mansell and Michael Andretti comprised the front row, and it didn't take long for the expected rivalry to heat up.
Nigel tried to crowd me over into the wall on the first start, and I backed out of it. Then they threw the yellow, so we didn't get a start. I went to Nigel and I said that you know, don't be doing that, because if you do, I'm not going to back off next time. Then we're going to have a big mess. And then he said some unpleasant things to me, and then I just responded by just saying, don't do it, and then we won't have a problem.
Michael and his new Reynard dominated from start to finish. And despite this mid-race spin on an increasingly wet track, Andretti's new Reynard chassis took the licking and kept on ticking. Michael cruising to victory in his first race back on the IndyCar circuit.
To me, it was one of my most memorable races, for sure. I think probably my most memorable was '91 when I won the championship at Laguna Seca by winning the race and everything. But this one rates right next to that one, I believe.
Chip, let's clear something up right off the top. This was not your first win as an owner.
No, people say that, but they forget that I owned Patrick Racing for a couple of years in '88 and '89 with Emerson driving, and but the first win, I guess, for the team as it's configured now.
Making the win even more difficult was the fact that with the long delays, the race had to be called 10 laps early on account of darkness.
It was tough. I mean, you couldn't see the last few laps, and I was taking it very easy, being very cautious, just making sure that I had enough gap over Emerson to finish and not make a mistake.
We could have gone another lap, I don't think, safely, so I think the call to shorten the race was really a good one.
The lights were on again in Phoenix, Arizona, as the second race of the young IndyCar season got underway under the bright and sunny skies at Phoenix International Raceway. Team Penske sorted out their electrical problems from Australia and was ready to make their presence felt. Paul Tracy sat on the pole on the newly paved 1-mile oval, setting a new track record in the process.
It's nice to be on the pole. I'd like to qualify on the pole for my first, oval race, but if we can't get it, I know the car is working well, and we'll just look forward to, getting set up for the race.
Rookie Jacques Villeneuve surprised most with a front row start. But it was Tracy that led the first 10 laps. On lap 62, Hiro Matsushita made contact with Teo Fabi in turn 4, eliminating leader Paul Tracy as well in the process. As the debris was untangled, Jacques Villeneuve, unaware of what was going on up ahead of him, crashed hard into Hiro's disabled machine. Amazingly, no one was seriously injured, and Emerson Fittipaldi assumed the lead. On lap 165, Mario Andretti's ill-handling machine crashed in turn 3, eliminating son Michael in the process. With the long delay for the accident cleanup, Emerson Fittipaldi took the victory in something less than record time, with Penske teammate Al Unser Jr. finishing second.
It was just a good run all day. We brought Al in there at the end because he said he picked up a big push and he'd run through a bunch of Mario stuff, so he couldn't take a chance, but Emerson had a super drive.
Well, it's a big win. It's first time I win in Phoenix. I was looking for a win in Phoenix for a long time, and it was a very tense race. I mean, I was up on my feet all the time and was incredible race. I'm very pleased, and our junior did a beautiful job.
He definitely had the better car today, but you know, 1-2 finish for the Marlboro Team Penske, it's super.
One fan very interested in the outcome was Emerson Fittipaldi's longtime friend, ex-Beatle George Harrison, who found oval racing somewhat unusual.
It's exciting on the oval in a kind of strange way. I find it slightly bizarre, you know, just going round and round on especially the mile oval. It's kind of makes you dizzy just watching, let alone driving the car. And the kind of yellows, I think they invent the yellow flag so people like us can go and make a cup of tea, have a sandwich, and not miss any of the race.
The super team domination continued in Long Beach as the 3 Penske drivers lined up 1 through 3 for the start. On lap 21, pole sitter Tracy spun, collecting Mike Groff in the process. Groff was eliminated. It would be the first of 4 such spins for Tracy on the afternoon. On lap 39, Jacques Villeneuve collected an unwanted passenger, but stayed in the race. Some of the Penske drivers were experiencing gearbox problems, and on lap 63, Emo slowed down, putting Al Unser Jr. into the lead. Unser held on to capture his 5th victory at Long Beach, the most in the history of the race, doing so in record speed. Nigel Mansell captured 2nd, while Robbie Gordon finished 3rd. The point standings then as the teams enter the month of May for the world's biggest race remain tight. Team Penske runs 1 and 2 with Nigel Mansell, Michael Andretti, and the surprising Stefan Johansson rounding out the top 5. The second 5 looks like this, with Mario Andretti still making noise in this, his final season. We're back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road to Indy. I'm Bob Jenkins, and let me now introduce to you a couple of guys who will be guiding you through the month of May here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway with extensive coverage in a program called Indy Live, which will be on every day this coming week, Monday through Friday, and next week. On my immediate left is Derek Daly, former IndyCar and Formula One driver, and Paul Page, who, of course, you're familiar with as our commentator on ESPN IndyCar telecast. Welcome, guys. We'll talk about Indy Live more in just a minute. First of all, let's show you what happened earlier today here at the Speedway when the track finally opened for practice. Yesterday, it was just a horrible day at Indianapolis with rain and cold weather, but look at today. Bright, sunshiny skies hovered over Gasoline Alley as the cars were pushed out to the pit area and the anticipated 11 o'clock opening of the racetrack.
And I don't know whether there's a lot of money for being the first car on the racetrack or not, but Dick Simon seems to have this fetish with making sure his stable are the first cars on the racetrack. And yet again, Paul, this year, he manages to do it.
Well, you're not just talking a stable with Dick Simon. You're talking a whole barn full now. 6 cars coming out, including, of course, Raul Boesel, who last year led in the early going here, led the first laps, and Lynn St. James, who is now going to look for yet another car.
Got to lead Indianapolis for the first time because Lynn St. James was at the head of the pack as the first cars took their very slow laps of the Speedway this morning.
And a tremendous crowd on hand anticipating the beginning of another month of May here in Indianapolis. It's been quite a busy day, and as a matter of fact, Michael Andretti was one of the early drivers out. Michael, of course, is back here at the Speedway this year after being absent because of his Formula One commitment, so he's anxious to get back there and work up to speed. He's already up to 223.769 miles an hour.
Believe it or not, Michael in winter testing here on this car did a speed of 229 miles an hour very, very quickly. But unfortunately, today was a short day because he had a huge cloud of smoke when he exploded one of his Ford engines. So not a lengthy number of laps for Michael today.
So that'll lead us to the question that'll be asked all month: what engines will survive, what will not? Of course, this is a Ford engine in this Reynard chassis, and as you suggested, Derek, when it let go, it really let go. And that's the kind of thing that everyone keeps track of. Who went, what kind of combination were they running when it happened?
That looks like a probably $150,000 smoke screen, because when they make that much smoke, there's something ventilated the engine, gone out through the side. and Michael disappears and jumps out.
Well, as we come back live here, we are yellow once again, under a yellow condition. Nothing serious on the racetrack, but the inspectors have gone out to see it. As you mentioned, there are so many issues to deal with here. We mentioned the reliability of the Ford engine, but certainly I think the question on a lot of people's mind, how about the reliability of the new Mercedes engine that Roger Penske will be running?
And that is the #1 question I think everybody's going to ask this month of May, because this is such a new engine. Very seldom you actually have an engine this new that somebody makes a commitment to bring all 3 of his cars, star drivers, here with a total new design of engine. For my mind, for Mercedes to make such a public commitment to come to the Speedway, they must believe it's very strong, reliable, and lots of horsepower.
Well, this will get me in a lot of trouble with Roger Penske, and I don't mean to be the sayer of bad things, but let us remember that only once in a 25-year history of a pushrod engine at Indianapolis has a pushrod actually finished the 500 miles. And secondly, no brand new engine has ever won the Indianapolis 500.
And of course, we should say, now you mentioned stock block. This is the new design of engine that fits into the new rule package that USAC introduced, a 209 engine, pushrod 2-valve engine, which Roger Penske and Mercedes have taken advantage of the new rules.
So more properly, it's a purpose-built rather than a stock block,
right,
with a push rod.
Well, the speeds have been rather quick here already, with several drivers already above 220 miles an hour, and they're going as fast as 224 already here in the very, very first practice session. Scott Brayton with the quickest, as a matter of fact, 224.5. Roberto Guerrero, who is the track record holder, at 223.8. Michael Andretti at 223.7 before the engine blew, and Teo Fabi and Raul Boisel have also practiced in excess of 220 miles an hour. Other speeds turned in today. Eddie Cheever exceeds 220. Mike Groff at 218 in the Honda. Scott Sharp at 218.8. There's Paul Tracy in one of Roger Penske's cars at 217.5, and Bobby Rahal in the other Honda engine at 217.307. Well, again, we are live here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road to Indy. We are under caution right now. We'll be back to take a look at the chassis that have shown up here this year in just a moment. Michael Andretti's victory with the Reynard chassis in his very first outing follows in the tradition of Reynard having won their first time out in both Formula 3 and Formula 3000. Designer Malcolm Osler had already completed most of the design on the new Reynard when Bruce Ashmore came over from Lola to head up Reynard's North American effort. For one thing, the Reynard front end looks a lot different than the Lola.
Well, I suppose the front wing assembly we used off of the Formula 3000. We scaled it up and plugged it on.
And the suspension certainly got a test on the rough and rugged Australian chicanes.
Mostly it's just a lot stronger.
The cockpit is different too.
Right, Malcolm laid out the driver cockpit, giving him plenty of room around him and moving him further back from the front wheels. He looked at the way the rules were written and optimized the driver's safety cell as far as he could. And then we worked on the aerodynamics from there.
Unlike the competition, the Reynard will not feature a transverse gearbox.
It's different to the current cars. It's a longitudinal gearbox, which was the standard in IndyCar racing. And other teams or constructors have gone to the transverse. We decided to stick with the longitudinal, particularly for Indy and gearbox maintenance.
What would be the difference between the Reynard and the Lola and the Reynard and the Penske?
One of the main differences, she's very strong. We put a lot of material into the tub. That's one area. And the other one is the front wings and side pod. We took a different approach to how we flow the air around the front wing, around the front wheels, side pod, and through to the rear wheel.
The Reynard is not alone in the world of chassis. The 94 Penske sometimes looks more like a fish out of water than the standard racing machine. That's because a large fin has been added to the back of the chassis.
It looks a little different because it has a fin on the engine cover, which is, I could say we just introduced it to introduce some speculation and some rumors, but it's there to correct a problem we had when we first started testing in short ovals.
Nigel, is this the 500 winner?
Yeah.
The Lola chassis has been around for a long time now, but it too has changed significantly for 1994. Car owner Derek Walker.
The biggest difference in the Lola chassis is the fact that it's all carbon this year. We've been forced to go back and do a lot more work to make the chassis stronger, and with the new rules every year, you know, they try to get the limits a little higher so that the car will stand more of an impact. The cars are very, very close, which is a great show for the fans. There's nobody really got a domination. You know, Nigel Mansell walks on water some days, the next days he's just like the rest of the guys.
They've been dubbed the Super Team. Between them, they own 3 Indianapolis 500 victories, 7 if you count their team manager, Rick Mears. And their team owner has visited Victory Lane at Indianapolis a record 9 times himself. Al Unser Jr. joins returning Penske mates Paul Tracy and Emerson Fittipaldi to form what some say may be an unbeatable effort.
Well, I like it a lot. You know, the Marlboro Team Penske is a super operation, and they expanded a little bit in order to include me in on it.
He has the experience, even he's young. He has the maturity that needs to perform. And I'm sure we're going to have a great team together. I'm really happy to have Arjun on my team.
While the idea of a 3-man team is something that not everyone agrees with, for this group of proven winners, it seems to be working.
If there's one guy who knows how to run a 3-car team, is Roger.
Rick is going to be working with me, 4-time winner. Emerson's a 2-time winner. Al's won the race. A lot of knowledge to tap into there, and you know, I think we're going to have a really strong team in Indianapolis, and I'm really looking forward to getting there.
Being labeled as a super team can be a lot of pressure to live up to, even for a group of champions. But for Little Al, Paul Tracy, and Emerson Fittipaldi, it's a challenge they're ready for.
It's a nice title, but to stay there as a super team, we have to work really hard. And we have the people, we have the experience, and we have the potential to be a super team, and I hope we can perform as a super team.
Coming back with Roger is definitely an advantage at Indy. The level of commitment that this man has towards winning the Indy 500, I have not seen with anybody else.
With Team Penske looking strong already, they may get even better. That's because this past April, Mercedes announced its plans to return to Indianapolis. In 1915, Ralph De Palma crossed the finish line first at the Brickyard, averaging almost 90 miles an hour with the aid of Mercedes power. For 1994, Mercedes returns to Indy. The new Mercedes-Benz pushrod engine, developed by Mercedes-Benz partner Ilmor Engineering, will be used exclusively by Team Penske at this year's 500-mile race.
Today, Mercedes, Ilmor, and Penske are partners in the engine company.
Originally, we had the idea to start in 1995. Now, this special opportunity came up. We are very glad to have a chance of making use of that. We are all excited, and we expect a lot for May 29.
The Mercedes is supposedly quick, and like the Buick, now Menard engines, the Mercedes-Benz will be running 55 inches of boost at Indianapolis, but even that has never guaranteed success at the Brickyard.
I don't come to Indianapolis counting on dropping out at 100 laps. I've been there. I know what that feels like. So it's important for everyone to know in this room that this engine has to have the durability. We understand that.
For the drivers that comprise the super team, the new Mercedes engine, while unproven, is exciting nevertheless.
I'm very excited. I think for the fans and everybody, there's something new to cheer for.
It's a move that to try to be competitive. We came here and put air jacks on. We were ones that come here, we put wings on the cars. We ran really V8s to start with. This is again part of our, I think, the operation. We want to be first.
This team sets the standard, and this is a perfect example right here.
While Team Penske will debut the new Mercedes mount this May, the Ray Hall Hogan team will feature its own bride of sorts as Honda throws its competitive hat into the ring. So far, the results have been mixed, with Honda teammate Mike Groff's 6th place showing in Phoenix the team's best finish to date. Still, for a new program such as this, it's a learning curve, and the future looks bright.
It's not easy. I think other manufacturers that have come in the past, from Europe in particular, thought it was, and they failed. I think at least with Honda, they understand that there's a definite sort of, there are nuances and there are little inside things that make the difference that they're going to have to learn. I have no doubt about the commitment that Honda and its people are making, and in the long run, that's going to make the difference.
A year ago at Indianapolis, 6 of the top 7 finishers were powered by Ford mounts. Only the winner, Emerson Fittipaldi, managed to break the Ford stranglehold on race day using Chevy C power. The Chevrolet engine no longer exists, at least in name. Now known as the Ilmor, Chevrolet has decided to concentrate on the consumer automobile business, choosing to stay out of a bidding war for the nameplate. As a result, Chevrolet has removed itself from IndyCar racing for 1994.
We had a tremendous run. When you look at the championships, no one's beaten us for a long, long time at Indy. The Drivers' Championship has flowed to us a number of times over the last few years. It's been a very successful program, but quite clearly it comes down to a question of economics and whether or not you can afford to compete at the level you have been able to compete and still make economic sense for a car company.
Also on the horizon for 1995, the Toyota program, set to emerge on Indianapolis under the guidance of Indy veteran Dan Gurney. Indeed, from a competition standpoint, the list of challengers has never appeared stronger. Every season at Indianapolis produces its share of musical chairs. Just when you figure out who's driving what car for which team, somebody goes and throws a monkey wrench into the whole picture by switching teams, and the domino effect begins. We told you Penske now has a 3-man operation with the addition of Little Al. But with 109 entries vying for 33 starting spots, things could get confusing. Newman Haas returns intact, with defending IndyCar champion Nigel Mansell looking to improve upon last year's 3rd-place finish at Indianapolis, while Mario returns for one last go-around. Michael Andretti, of course, returns to Indianapolis, period. This time with Chip Ganassi Racing, last year's 2nd-place finisher when Ari Luyendyk manned the helm. Scott Goodyear leaves Walker Racing to join Kenny Bernstein's Budweiser team, with Robbie Gordon leaving A.J. Foyt to take Goodyear's seat with Derek Walker. Walker, too, will be a 3-man operation in 1994, Willie T. Ribbs and Mark Smith completing the trio. Confused yet? We'll press on. Roberto Guerrero, Indy's 1992 record-setting pole sitter, is out with Bernstein, but in with Pagan Racing.
I think it should be a very solid team, and I'm really looking forward to working with great people and hopefully have a really good month of May.
Dick Simon is back after putting 5 cars in last year's race. This year, he's concentrating on only 4 entries, led by last year's 4th-place finisher, Raul Boesel.
I would have to say that from a competitive basis, we had our best year, and from a look towards the future, we're going after the championship this year. We've put everything we have into it. My wife and I even sold our own personal boats and everything else we have, and this is it. We're going for it.
The other 3 Simon drivers, Dennis Vitolo, Hiro Matsushita, who comes over from Walker Racing, and 1992 Indianapolis Rookie of the Year Len St. James, who returns to the Simon fold for a 3rd time in an Indy-only ride.
The full season isn't going to happen in 94, but I want to have the best Indy that I can possibly have. At least we know what our focus is. We know what we're really going to concentrate on. And then I'm going to work for 95. I mean, it's already the timing it takes for these planning and these things to happen. You got to have long lead times. So I'm already talking to people about 1995.
Simon is among a handful of team owners that call Indianapolis home. Derek Walker joined a growing list of such owners when he relocated to the Hoosier State this past winter. The reasons are varied.
We looked at first the geographical location of where, if we were going to build a shop, which is really part of what we're doing this year, building a new race shop, where would be the best place? If you're involved in IndyCar racing, geographically, what's the best place to be? And Indianapolis came out streets ahead.
Walker Motorsports was back in Reading, and, you know, he kept talking to me, and he says, why did you move from California to Indy? And I said, just look at the history. I mean, you've got the center of the wheel is right here, and the spokes go off to Elkhart Lake, to Milwaukee, to Detroit, to the Michigan 500, to Cleveland.
Over and above that, I think the city is really geared for Indy racing. You know, the whole town knows about it, and just about anything you want to do, somebody knows about racing and is very interested in trying to do business with you and help.
Working out of Indianapolis, you have the community that is just grand. It's beautiful, and everybody here loves racing. If you go into the grocery store, it's like everybody's your friend.
Another Indianapolis-based team is the Tony Bettenhausen stable, who returns to Indy with Stefan Johansson behind the wheel in a year-old Penske. Veteran Gary Bettenhausen switched teams only last week, joining brother Tony after a lengthy stint with John Menard. Team Menard is now Eddie Cheever and Scott Brayton. Brayton joins Menard after a long-term relationship with Dick Simon Racing. At Ray Hall Hogan, Bobby Ray Hall, of course, is only one half of the team. The other half, Mike Groff, last season's test driver. Jimmy Vassar, fourth in Australia and fifth at Phoenix, returns to Indy with Hayho Racing, this time with Ford power and a new Reynard chassis.
We think that it's got every bit as a chance to be a winner as a Penske or a Lola, so you know, we're excited about the Reynard, and being a part of the Reynard, the new project, getting in at the ground floor, I think is important. It's important for us.
Teo Fabi returns as the Hall Racing entrant. The 39-year-old Italian finished 9th at Indy a year ago and returns in a Pennzoil car that features a Reynard chassis and Ilmor power. 1990 winner Ari Luyendyk returns with a new team, Indy Regency Racing, in a 94 Lola Ilmor package. While another upgraded team, Pac West Racing, hopes that Indy veteran Dominic Dobson and Trans Am champion Scott Sharp are the answers. Dobson finished 23rd a year ago with the old Galmer chassis, but this year both he and Sharp will feature Lolas with Ford power. Sharp, meanwhile, heads a long list of rookies hoping to replace Nigel Mansell as last season's Indy Rookie of the Year.
Definitely Rookie of the Year there, and then definitely a top 10 finish. Besides that, I think I got to see how comfortable I get with the place before I say anything else.
Another Indianapolis rookie, Adrian Fernandez, will pilot the Gallus effort this May at the Brickyard. Fernandez, the 1992 Indy Lights Rookie of the Year, competed in several races for Gallus in 1993. But the Brickyard will be a whole new challenge.
It's always tough to learn new tracks, but I feel good in the ovals, and if I take my time and learn step by step, I think we will be able to be good.
Jacques Villeneuve is yet another rookie hoping to engrave his face upon the Borg-Warner Trophy in 1994. Villeneuve runs for a new team, Forsyth Green Racing, under the direction of veteran Barry Green.
This is a tough year to come to IndyCar racing because there's a lot of competition.
Competition is very high, but that's great because it's the best way to learn.
While rookies are plentiful, so are the returning veterans. Al Unser Sr. is back to try for his record 5th win, this time with AMS Racing, another new team. Meanwhile, the strange case of John Andretti. John has run Indy quite a few times. In 1994, he'll do so again, this time for Jonathan Bird AJ Foyt Racing, in a new 94 Lola with Ford power. But in a change of pace, Andretti will also attempt to run NASCAR's Charlotte 600-mile race later that day.
Because it's possible, we want to be able to try to do it, and I'll work out real hard and try to do all the right things so that I'm ready to go 1,100 miles in a day. I'll be on fire if I get in that other race and I won the Indy 500.
The road to Indy will continue in a moment. One year ago, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway underwent one of its most extensive facelifts in the 77 years that the race has been run. One major change to the track itself involved the new warm-up lanes on the north and south ends of the racing surface, making entering and exiting the pits easier and safer. Additionally, a 30-inch wide warning strip of recessed grooves, or rumble strips if you will, was added to remind drivers to stay above the white line when entering the corners, while a grass buffer was adjoined to separate the track from the warm-up lanes. Driver concerns prior to the race were that not only would the cars be slowed down by the new narrower track, but that there would be no place to pass on race day. Passing, while perhaps more difficult, certainly was abundant. And on lap 184, both Ari Luyendyk and Emerson Fittipaldi pulled off one of the most exciting moves in recent Speedway memory, passing then-leader Nigel Mansell into Turn 1.
And the green flag is out. We are back to racing, and Emerson Fittipaldi makes a move on Nigel Mansell. He's got him going into one, but Leyendyke is also right there.
Oh, they went side by side, and Mansell fell all the way back to third place. Jerry, we got him coming right at you.
I think that they've done a great job here. The pit exit was much safer. Pit entrance was much safer. And the apron, it did the work that we expect, that slowed down the cars through the corner.
It was quite a bit different, obviously. The speed show that, and the drivers will tell you that because they had to drive it a lot different. There was no more flat footing, wide open, and hang on at that place. You had corners you had to negotiate.
It was a different track, and you know, needed some different lines and different passing techniques, and I think different car setup also. But for the most part, I have to say that it was probably a more competitive race from the standpoint that there was more cars finished on the lead lap.
It really changed the nature of the race and of the racetrack. Although I think anybody who watched last year's race would have said it wasn't for the worst. I think it probably was for the best.
I think it was a new track for everyone. You know, it was not just me. A lot of people were pointing their finger at myself because they know that I took advantage of the aprons and so forth. But you know, I wasn't the only one. That was racetrack, and you used it. So it was taken away from us, and you use what's there.
With a full year of experience under their belts, the possibility for additional passing and further speed gains in 1994 seems imminent.
I don't know. Rick Mears retired, so I don't know how much outside passing we're going to see.
I don't know that daring moves will happen a lot more. I think, but if they're going to be made, I got the right guy to do it, don't I?
Well, you know, hopefully, you know, I can lead just one lap, and that's the last lap. You know, it seems like I've led at every 100-mile marker except for the 500-mile marker, so that's the one I'm worried about, and hopefully we can just lead that last lap, and I'd be very happy.
Let me put it this way. I think pole is going to be a lot faster than it was last year. I remember last year talking to a lot of people, and they were saying it would be impossible to take all four corners flat without taking your foot off the throttle. That's a myth. I mean, I've done that more than once already in testing.
For 1994, the changes continue at the Brickyard. The pit wall has been rebuilt, widening the area directly behind each team, providing them with more room on race day, while narrowing the grassy area between the pit lane and the track itself. Last fall, in a cosmetic move of sorts, the ancient landmark so easily identifiable with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the scoring pylon, was torn down. In its place, however, a new pylon has been constructed.
Actually, it was a result of the fact that when we redid the pits, the new pit wall actually ran right down the middle of the old scoring pylon. So in fact, we just tore the old scoring pylon down and decided after we tore it down to erect a new one. We have 33 permanent positions. I think in that case tradition prevailed, but we've allowed for 2 more fields or 2 more positions down below the 33 permanent positions that will allow additional car positions and numbers to be continuously scrolled. So we have the 33 permanent positions as tradition would dictate for the 500, and then we can scroll any number of positions for the 400.
Change is inevitable, even at Indianapolis, perhaps the most traditional of all of America's great sporting events. The road to Indy will continue in a moment. One of the biggest events of the month of May is the farewell performance of one of Indy's all-time greatest, Mario Andretti. He came to Indianapolis in 1965 as a highly touted rookie, placing 3rd in the 500-mile race that season, while winning Rookie of the Year honors. 4 years later, in 1969, he would capture his only win alongside Andy Granatelli. The '69 victory was thought to be the first of many more for Andretti, but it was not to be, as the next 25 years produced more than its share of heartaches. Still, the lack of another victory here at Indianapolis has not diminished Andretti in the eyes of his contemporaries.
You talk about my luck there. I mean, his luck is just as bad. You know, he's led so many laps. I think he's 2nd or 3rd on the all-time laps led, and he only won 1 race.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, you know, Mario and I have had a long career together. He's been with me longer than he has with anyone else. I think this is our 12th year, if I'm not mistaken. And It's been a good relationship. There's been some good days and bad days for both of us.
Everything that Mario drove, he was quick and he won all over the world. I have a lot of respect, and I think it will be a very emotional year for Mario, very tough year, knowing that at the end of the year, he'll be out. I could never do that. The day I retire like Rick did.
He's a fierce competitor, you know, even now after all these years, he's still seems as motivated as he ever was. And I mean, he's undoubtedly one of the greatest champions the sport has ever had. He's a great hero.
There's no doubt that Mario, I think, is really been a hero to everybody in motor racing. I mean, he really is the epitome of IndyCar racing and really the sport of motor racing.
To know you're running on the same track at the same time with your hero and a legend and one of the greatest drivers in history does a lot for you and your motivation. And from when you started, I mean, this is the way you started, this is how you remembered as a child, and you wanted to do this all your life and race with this man, and it does a lot for you.
Will you miss him when he's gone?
Mario will never be gone. Mario will always be here.
And here's the checkered flag. Pat Vadan holds it and waves it for Mario Andretti, winner of the 1969 500-mile race.
The stories surrounding that 69 race are fascinating, as was that particular year in American history itself. ESPN and Telex Sports are proud to present a very special look back at that 1969 race some 25 years later in a one-hour special entitled Indy 69, Flight of the Hawk. Long-forgotten archive film clips, along with moving comments from the participants, help make this a very special piece of history. Indy 69, Flight of the Hawk, will be broadcast the night before the race, Saturday, May 28th at 5 o'clock Eastern, right here on ESPN. We're now back in the garage area, and with us is Mario Andretti. We've just heard a lot of drivers say some very nice things about you. I'm sure it makes you feel old on the one hand, but it has to be very gratifying to hear these drivers talk so highly about you.
Sure. It's very gratifying. It makes me nervous, too.
When you were growing up, when you were first getting into racing, who were the drivers that you idolized?
Well, drivers of the era back in the middle 50s and on, I think into the 60s as well. Obviously, I think as kids, we always have our role models. I had mine, and you know, even contemporaries such as I often said that Phil Hills, Dan Gurney's, and IndyCar racing. I mean, Foyt in those days, and Jimmy Bryan, Johnny Thompson, you name them, Roger Ward. People like that.
The sport has changed so much since those days. If you were writing your biography or autobiography, how would you describe the main changes in IndyCar racing in the last 25 or 30 years?
Well, I think looking back, I was one that sort of was right at the edge of the tire technology, for one thing, and when we went from the narrow groove tires on to the wide tires and then slicks and so on and so forth. And then the aerodynamic side, I think, was very interesting. Indeed, it was what revolutionized single-seater racing, and at the beginning was always a cigar shape, you know, extremely aerodynamic, just for straight line speed, and then you started realizing that you needed to corner, so you started coming up with airfoils and downforce, and then studying the ground effects. And as you can see, that there was a lot to be gained, and over the years, I think you know, those were, I think, probably the most outstanding developments that I've seen over my.
We've got a great show coming up on ESPN later this month, tracing your success in 1969. What do you remember about that day?
It's a great day. It was actually it was an incredible weekend for me because events leading up to it were not very pleasant or very positive. We seemed like to have everything going against us, and 2 or 3 years prior to that was that type of a thing where I just was not finishing the races. I had started with my rookie year with a good qualifying and a good finish. And then the subsequent years when I really felt that I was much more aware of what was going on and probably capable of some results, you know, nothing was happening here. 69 was another one that was leading up to that. But race day, it all came together, and it wasn't supposed to be, but it was my day.
As you enter your final year, the Arrivederci Tour is well underway. Do you have any special thoughts about your final go-around?
Well, each event is much more special because obviously I have to look at it as my last chance to perform and do well at that particular venue, and also the fact that some of the venues, such as for instance Indianapolis here, where I've been, you know, competing for so many years, you know, it's you know, it's got a touch of you know, emotion connected with it, obviously, and I'm trying to keep that aside so it doesn't interfere with my mindset as far as the work that I have to do. But I can't help it, you know, just you know, being a little bit nervous about the thing, and but at the same time, I'm just trying to really capitalize on this, my last chance, and enjoy it at the same time.
Are you capable of winning the 500-mile race this year?
No, you're darn right I am. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think so.
What are you going to do, or what will you be doing a year from now? Do you have any idea?
Well, I don't have those plans set, and it's by design. I just don't want to confuse my priorities at the moment, and I don't think I have to rush into my near future right now. I picture myself, as I say, working toward staying involved in the sport. As I said this many times, what would probably make sense is to be maybe in the ownership side of a team, something like that. But I'm not ruling out doing some long-distance racing as well. So as you can see, maybe I'll just stay busy in that respect for the next couple of years. But I'll suss all that out at the end, after the end of the season.
Well, it's been 25 years since Mario Andretti took the checkered flag here at the Indianapolis 500. It just could be that he'll repeat in 1994. We are back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the first day of practice for this year's 500-mile race, with yesterday having been rained out. I'm Bob Jenkins, and there isn't a whole lot of activity on the track right now. We expect happy hour in about 35 minutes from right now. Mario Andretti is out on the racetrack testing. But right now, let's talk more with Derek Daly and Paul Page about Indy Live, which will keep you up to date on what's going on here at the Speedway every day this coming week. Paul, what's it all about?
Well, the good news is it's the first time it's ever been tried, so Lord knows what it's going to end up being all about. What we want it to be is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway during practice in a very live mode. This particular track has never had the opportunity of having that daily kind of report, like looking at Mario Andretti out on the track as he moves out for one of the first times in his month of May. We're going to have a chance to talk to these drivers because we're going to be located right in the center of the pits in a position where you can simply reach out and grab one. Something that I think we can do right now. Eddie Cheever is here and not far away from us. You've been running some pretty quick laps, in fact, second quick of the day.
We did a lot of testing before we came here, so it's a big hectic with more cars on the track, and I wish they'd all leave and leave me the track to myself, but that's not going to happen, is it? But the car's running really well.
Is this unshaven, more aggressive Cheever style this year?
One thing I don't need to be is more aggressive, so I don't think this is just I got to work late this morning.
Eddie, you led this race here last year, but only when you ran in clean air. Do you think the car is better, more developed, that will give you a more realistic chance to try and win this year?
That is something that we've worked on. We've worked on two things. Obviously, trying to make the car faster for qualifying. Now the track configuration change is not as wide as it was before, and we've been quite successful with that. And then the race is a totally different thing. If you remember last year, the fastest lap was like a 2:13, which is very slow. And the track is getting very narrow at those speeds, so putting more downforce into it and trying to find a balance is really difficult.
Believe it or not, as you do it, we have digital information that tells us exactly whether you had breakfast this morning or not.
Second quick at 2:23.998, right behind Scott Brayton with a 2:24.5.
Scott who?
Yeah, exactly. We know you need to debrief. Thanks for spending a few moments with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie.
Eddie Cheever, just one of the stories as we take a look at the top speeds of the day. And we look down through Scott Brayton, then Eddie Cheever, as we already suggested, Roberto Guerrero at 2:23.8. The bottom half of the top 10, with Michael Andretti out earlier, blew a motor, and then came out in his backup car. They call it the T car here. Now, Derek, let's talk a bit about engines, chassis, people. First of all, we probably got the best variety of engines we've ever seen here.
And it's interesting that we see two Buicks at the head of the field so far, because really Buicks are not the engine of choice. John Menard really having spent so much money over the past years to get his to work. But when you throw in the Honda, we see here Mike Groff in the Motorola Honda-powered car. When you listen to this engine, it's very different to anything you've ever heard here before at the Speedway. Then think of the rest of the variety. The Chevrolet A, we have A+, we probably have some B engines, we have the new Ds, throw in the Mercedes-Benz, the Ford. We have a phenomenal engine battle about to start here.
Very quickly, what about people?
Well, people, pull the first one out of that comes to mind, Nigel Mansell. He would love to win this race here, and he came so close in his rookie year last year.
We look forward to Indy Live at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, Monday through Friday of this coming week and next week also. We will be back to wrap things up live here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in just a moment. As you can see, the practice continues with speeds reaching upwards of 224 miles an hour here in the very first day. We'll be back to wrap things up from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway after this. We are back live at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway as practice continues for the 78th running of the 500-mile race. Well, practice will continue all this week leading up to the run for the pole position, which will be next Saturday. They'll also have qualifying next Sunday and then the following Saturday and Sunday. Roberto Guerrero is the track record holder here at Indianapolis. Don't forget that. That was said 2 years ago. And most people that you talk with up and down pit road here will say that the record probably will be broken this year during the run for the pole next Saturday. Indy Live will be on ESPN at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway at 6 o'clock Eastern Time this coming Monday through Friday, and again next week with Paul Page and Derek Daly. Well, there's Scott Goodyear as he takes some practice laps on the 2.5-mile oval. Right now, we're going to have to wrap things up here, but don't forget to join us tomorrow at 6 o'clock Eastern Time. My thanks to Derek and Paul for joining me. This is Bob Jenkins. Thanks for joining us at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road to Indy.